Welcome to another video from Robotic Mower Services. In this video here, we're going to talk about putting islands in your boundary wire system and what kind of errors you might get from your mower if not done properly, and how to go about diagnosing and solving these issues regarding the islands with your boundary wire system for your robotic lawnmower. For anybody that doesn't know, islands are used in the working area to keep the mower out of areas where you don't want it to go, such as flower beds, a garden, or maybe you have a tree with roots that are exposed where the mower would get hung up on the roots and you have to go out there and keep resetting it. You would put an island around those areas to prevent the mower from going in there. The way the island is created is the wire comes in from the boundary wire, goes around the object you want the mower to avoid or the area you want the mower to avoid, and then back out to the boundary wire, as you can see here in this diagram. Pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Islands can be added during the initial installation or later on, weeks, months, years later, as you add more trees or you decide to add a garden or a flower bed or something like that to the working area, where again, you just want to keep the mower away from that area or away from that object. Let's start by talking about the island setup you see on the left side of this diagram. You can see where you have your boundary wire, the wire goes up halfway around the first island and then out and up and goes the whole way around that second island, the upper one there, and then comes back down around the other side of the original first island and then back out to the boundary wire, and your signal keeps on going. And you can see here there's arrows on those lines that indicate that is the way the signal from your charging station is traveling. So whatever's coming in the right side must go up and go around the right side of both those islands, and then eventually come back and go down the left side, and then back out the left side of your boundary wire. Where the confusion starts for a lot of people when it comes to installing islands is at the bottom here where you can see the two arrows facing each other, and it says 0 centimeters / 0 inches. If you look at the diagram on the right, you will see that same 0 centimeters / 0 inches, and in that circle there, they have the same arrows pointing to each other, and you can see there's a gap between those two wires that would go to and from the island. In the circle next to that, with the slash across it, saying, no, don't do this, you see those two wires, the ones coming to and from the island, cross over each other at the spot where they open up to create the island. And that's what they're saying, do not do this because that will cause a problem. So for all of you that are saying, well, I've twisted those wires coming to and from the islands in my installation and I didn't have any problems, stick with me because you're going to learn something here as well too. What happens when you twist the wires in the wrong spot or too many times, it will actually reverse the signal. The mower will actually work inside the island, but not around the island. I know, kind of hard to understand looking at a black and white picture here. So, here we go. I'm going to show you something that we made up to make this a little bit easier to understand. Here we have a model of a basic island installed in a robotic lawnmower working area. We use two different colors of wire, black wire and we use the red wire. One represents the signal incoming to form the island, and the other one represents the outgoing signal from the island. So here we have the black wire, which would carry the signal from the charging station, and that would be the incoming signal, so it goes from the boundary wire in and halfway around the island, which then it becomes an outgoing signal, and that's represented with the red wire. And you can see the red wire follows the whole way out through, and then goes back into the boundary system, and on it goes, till it goes to the next island, or till it goes back into the charging station. The thing to remember is, whatever is coming from the left side has to be the same thing on the left side of the island. Whatever's coming from the right side has to be the same thing on the right side of your island. So what if we put one twist or a couple twists or just twist the entire section of wire between our boundary wire and our island together? Will it work? Will it cancel the signal out, reverse the signal on the island like they show you not to do in the instructions? Well, because we use the two different color wires, you can see here how you can make this work. Remember, the key is whatever is incoming needs to stay on the same side. Whatever's outgoing needs to stay on the same side when the wire opens up to create that island. So here we have the black coming down, just like we did in that first diagram, or that first model, and where it gets out there to our island and it opens up, the black wire is on the same side of the island as it is on the boundary wire. Then our red wire is on the same side of the island as it is at the boundary wire. So the incoming stays the incoming, the outgoing stays the outgoing. Just like plumbing, your cold stays cold, your hot stays hot. It's not going to magically switch from being cold and then all of a sudden hot and then all of a sudden cold again, or vice versa. That's what you want, just like you see here. Doesn't matter how many times we twist up the wires in between because they're supposed to cancel each other out. What matters is when the wires open back up, that you have the signal going the same way again so it doesn't confuse the mower. Now, you might be asking, well, why would we cross those wires over anyway? In a diagram, it shows one going in, one coming out. There's a distance between them. Well, remember, that said 0 centimeters, 0 inches. So that means the closer they are together, the better. I know before a lot of people would say, oh, keep them about a half an inch to an inch apart, something like that. But on large installs where you're getting closer to that 800 meters of wire, or just in general, that's better practice to keep those wires as close as possible. Use the same staple to staple those wires down, bring them in the same trench, or twisting them together is what helps them cancel each other out better so the mower will cross over them in the area coming to and from the island. And what happens is if you have a larger gap in there, or even a half an inch gap, and you get there close to that 800 meters of wire in your whole boundary system, which includes this, making these islands, if that signal starts to weaken a little bit, it won't cancel out there anymore. The mower will come up to those two wires and will recognize it as a boundary wire and not cross over. Or let's say, just right off the bat, you install this mower and you have 900 meters of wire in your installation. When it comes up to that wire there where it's going to and from the island and you have a half an inch gap in there, it's probably just going to stop there. The signal's not going to be strong enough for it to cancel out. The mower will recognize it as a boundary wire instead, and it'll back up and it'll go around and go the whole way out around that island and eventually find its way back. So again, it's going to be better to twist these wires together, to staple them together, to bury them together, keep them as close as possible to avoid any of those issues later on down the road, and make sure that those signals do cancel each other out in the spots where the mower is supposed to cross over. Now here's an example of what's going to confuse the mower and what's not going to work for you. After seeing those first two models there, where you saw the black wire with your signal coming in and going out to start to form your island, and then turning to red and being your outgoing signal back to your boundary wire, pretty easy to see what's happening here, right? You have the same black wire, that'd be your incoming signal, but when it gets out to the island and it opens up, it's the wrong color on that side, isn't it? It's red. So now your outgoing signal wire is on the opposite side of the island, and that's going to confuse the mower when it comes up to it. It's actually not even going to come the whole way up to it. This is one where it would reverse the signal. If you put the mower inside of that island, it would actually start working inside of that island, but won't necessarily work around that island. It'll say it's out of bounds. It'll say no loop signal. It'll do all kinds of goofy stuff because that signal is reversed. And here you can see it's pretty easy to tell just because of the red wire and the black wire, as I said. But this is something that a lot of people have issues with because they put an extra twist in there or not enough twists to bring everything back around to where you would have the incoming signal on the same side the whole way through your island system and the outgoing signal on the same side the whole way through your island system. So here's a model of that double island setup that I showed you in that diagram from the Automower Workshop Manual. And now that you know what you're looking for and the two different colors of wire here, you can see we have the incoming signal, which is represented by our black boundary wire. It comes down the boundary and it goes in there. There's some twists and everything, but where it opens up to create that first island, it's in the correct side, right? The black wire is on the side of the black wire for the boundary wire, and then it twists around again, and when it gets to that second island and those wires open up, the black wire is on the correct side again. It's on the same side as that black wire where it comes down the boundary wire. Then halfway around that second island, that's where it becomes your outgoing signal, just like when it's a single island. And it goes back down through, the wires twist up where it opens up again to finish off that first island. The red wire is on the correct side for the outgoing signal. Now when it gets back to the boundary wire, it's still the red wire on the correct side, which would be your outgoing side of your boundary wire, to follow the signal the whole way around the boundary system like it would if that island wasn't there. This is a proper way to do a multi-island setup where, again, The incoming signal is on the same side of each island the whole way through. Your outgoing signal is on the correct side of the island the whole way through, all the way back to the boundary wire, and goes out the correct way at the boundary wire. Now here's what looks to be the same double island configuration like I just showed you. But this one's not going to work. This one's going to confuse the mower. Can you tell me why? You see it? You see the issue right there? Where the boundary wire comes down, our black wire, our incoming signal, and goes to form that first island, the wire is reversed. It's on the wrong side. But when it gets out there to form the second island, it is on the correct side. The black wire is on the correct side for the incoming. The red wire is on the correct side, indicating our outgoing signal. So, what is going to be the issue here with a setup like this? Well, the issue will be that first island. The mower will get lost around it, but it actually won't get lost around the second island because the orientation is correct there for the incoming and outgoing signal. How about this model here? Have you picked up enough on this now to know what might work and what might not work, and if there's a problem with this layout right here? If you said there is a problem and that second island is going to be the problem, you are correct. Makes it pretty easy with the different colored wire, huh? So you can see again, the black wire would represent our incoming signal from the charging station, comes down to boundary, goes in there, and the wire goes halfway around that first island, but where it opens up to form the second island, it's on the wrong side of the island. What would be our outgoing signal is on the side of the island where it should be the incoming signal, but when everything goes back to that first island, everything's in the correct orientation. And going back out the boundary, it's the correct orientation there as well. So, just like that previous one I showed you, we will have one island that'll work, one island won't work. On this model, the mower will work around the first island here in the series, but it will not work in that second island. And actually, that second island, with the signal being reversed like that, as I mentioned before, you could actually pick the mower up, set it inside the island, and the mower would work inside the island, but would not work around the island. So now hopefully you have a really good idea of what you can do, what you can't do, or how you should do it when you're creating an island and you're running the wires from your boundary wire in to create your island. And you can see that it is okay to twist them. It's actually better if you run them right on top of each other or right next to each other using the same staple. Whatever you can do to make them as tight as possible to be able to cancel each other out in between your boundary wire and the island, or in between an island and another island. And you can see that when you're laying this out, what you need to have in order for the mower to work correctly around those islands before you go burying everything and turning the mower loose and then realizing, it doesn't work there, we must have some kind of a problem. So now, the question is, what do you do if you do have a problem? Some of you guys out there, your wire is already buried, you made a splice or made a patch, somewhere in your boundary wire, or you added another island, and now all of a sudden you have an issue, or maybe you have an issue close to an island, but you don't know if it's an issue with the actual island. Well, I'm going to show you now how you can diagnose these problems and the easy way to solve it. The easiest way to diagnose whether or not your islands or the wires coming to and from your islands are causing an issue with your mower, whether it's giving you a no loop signal error or just acting funny in that area, is to use the quick info menu on your 115H, your 310, 315, 315X, 430X, 430XH, 450X, 450XH, and that does not include, obviously, the 450X E-Post models because they don't use boundary wires. But what you want to do is you want to either be in the home screen, as you see here, or in the menu, and hold down the 0 button, and that will bring up your quick info menu. And then you're going to select info, and then you want to go down to loop. In the loop selection of the quick info menu, when you go in there, you will see A loop is highlighted, and this is the section that you want. You can see A-signal front L, A-signal front R, A-signal rear L, A-signal rear R. That is your 4 loop sensors on your Automower, and that is the signal quality that they are getting from your boundary wire, which includes the wire around your islands. And anytime that you have the mower in the working area, it should be a positive number. It should be 60 or higher for the mower to work properly. but definitely want it to be a positive number on all 4 of those sensors. As you can see here, when the loop sensor for the Automower goes over the boundary wire, whether it's at the boundary or whether it's at an island, that signal quality will go down and then eventually go into the negatives. You can see here we got negative 75 and negative 79 on our front left and front right loop signal sensors, and here at the back we have 127 and 129 in the positives. As the mower passes further past the boundary wire, those negative numbers will increase and go deeper into the negatives to the point where once the mower is completely out of bounds, that means both the front and the rear loop sensors are past the boundary, then you will see all 4 of them registering in the negative, just like this here. When pushing the mower across the working area using the quick info menu, this is what you will see as you push the mower closer to an island or the boundary wire. You will see those numbers decreasing till they go into the negatives, as I just mentioned. And this is what it'll look like in the quick info menu once the front loop sensor has passed over the boundary wire or into the island. You can see that those numbers are in the negative, but the rear loop sensors are still in the positive because the rear loop sensors and the rear part of the mower are still in the working area. Everything that I just showed you there, this is what it looked like in regards to the actual mower and the boundary wire or the island wire. You can see here that orange wire is kind of tough to see, but this red circle represents our island. The nose of our mower with our front loop sensor is inside that island. That's why those readings went into the negative. The back of our mower, where our rear loop sensors are at, that is still in the main working area, and that is why those numbers are in the positive. Those negative values on that front loop sensor are what tells the mower, okay, I've gone past this boundary wire as far as I'm set to go past it. Now it's time to back up and go in a different direction. So now here we go again with the quick info menu. We're going to push the mower across the ground closer to our island, and you can see it's working just the same as in the previous video. The numbers for our front sensors are going down. They go into the negative. The back ones are still positive, but our mower is not even to the island yet, and it's already in the negative. This is how you can tell if you have an issue with your signal being reversed at your island. With the signal reversed, the mower will actually start sensing negative signal values in the working area, which should always be in the positive. Another way to prove that this is the issue is to take and just push the mower further into the island, as you can see here. As the mower goes into the island, those values will actually rise as the front loop sensor passes over the boundary wire into the island, to the point where if you put the entire mower inside the island, you will have some really high positive signal values, because again, the signal is reversed. What should be negative in the island is now all positives, and everything outside of the island is now negative. So after we find out that our issue is with our island, the signal is reversed, we've got negative where it should be positive, we've got positive where it should be negative, how do we correct this? How do we get our signal back to the correct ways where it's negative inside the island? Well, going back to our model here, if you got a single island, there's 2 ways you can do it, or actually should say 2 spots where you can do it. You can do it where it opens up to create the island. You can cut the wires right there. You can put an extra twist in, or you can take a twist out, or you can go back to the boundary wire and you can cut the wires right there and you can put an extra twist in there, or you can take 1 twist out and put everything back together, splice it back together, double check it with your mower before you just go saying, yep, we're good to go, we're done. But that's going to correct your signal and put the positive on the side it needs to be and the negative on the side that it needs to be by just adding or removing 1 twist in the wire. Now, on a multi-island setup, like you see here in this model, you would want to find the island where you're having the issue, and you would want to cut the wires where they open up to form that island. So in this one here, our second island is the one with the issue. We'd want to cut the wires right here, add an extra twist, or take a twist out so we get the signal corrected for that island. Our first island has no issues, so we don't want to mess anything up with it. If you have a multi-island setup and you realize, signals are reversed at all the islands in this chain, well, then your easiest way to fix this isn't going to be to go to all the different islands. It's going to be to go back to your boundary wire, cut the wires there where they go out to your islands and come back from your islands, and that way you can correct the signal right there for all your islands in that chain. So hopefully this has helped to clear up any kind of confusion and help you to better understand how to install islands in the working area for your robotic lawnmower, what to do if there is a problem with the mower around the islands, how to diagnose it, troubleshoot it, make the repairs in order to get the mower to work around those areas again. Remember, the big thing is in the mowing area, you have to have a positive signal to your loop sensors. In the areas inside the island, you would have a negative signal. Anywhere outside of the boundary wire, you would have a negative signal. So now that you know how to go through and check that using the quick info menu and what to look for, should be pretty easy from here. Now, whether you're repairing an existing island in your mower's working area, or adding a new island, or maybe running some more boundary wire, or just need some parts for your robotic lawnmower, the place to go is our website, www.roboticmowerservices.com. There you can shop around. We have tons of parts available. We have all kinds of options for technical support. We also have options there through our website where you can contact us, or if you need just a little bit more help, you can send us an email, techsupport@roboticmowerservices.com. Make sure to include the model and serial number of the mower you're working with, and give us as much information about the issue that you're having as possible so we can try to help you out the best we can to get your mower back up and running. That is going to do it for this video here. As always, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching.